What if I told you that Prince William has finally had enough? Not just frustration, not just side eyes, not polite, passive-aggressive silence, but obliteration, a royal reckoning that insiders say has been years in the making. But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. Because this time, it wasn't King Charles. It wasn't a stern letter from the Privy Council. It was William. Direct, personal, final. And what triggered it? Not a Netflix documentary. Not a leaked interview. Not even Meghan's mounting ties to Hollywood power players. It was something far more subtle and far more dangerous. It was 3 little letters. H. R. H. That's right. Her Royal Highness. The style Meghan was told, by the Queen herself, that she would no longer use after stepping down. The styling she promised didn't matter to her. The prefix she publicly dismissed, yet quietly kept lurking in the shadows of branding, influence, and soft power. And then, it appeared again, in a quietly worded press packet, in a closed-door speaking engagement, on internal documents surrounding Meghan's new foundation. Coincidence? Oversight? Not according to Prince William. Because this time, he wasn't just angry, he was done. And that's where this story explodes into royal high drama. Let's zoom out. Why does this matter, right now? You've heard the noise. The podcasts, the deals, the appearances, the memoirs, the glam shots. The tension between Montecito and the monarchy has been escalating for months. But behind the palace gates, something different was happening. Quiet meetings, private legal briefings, furious text exchanges, and one bold decision made not by the king, but by his heir. A final warning letter. A direct threat to permanently strip Meghan Markle of every remaining royal title, styling, and privilege. An operation, insiders say, called the Final Strike. We're not talking about gossip. We're talking about documented steps, real legal channels, strategic coordination across the royal household. This wasn't just William venting his anger. It was a coordinated response to a direct challenge to the crown. And what did Meghan do when she found out? She lost it. We're talking screaming fit, canceled calls, security clearing the room. Allegedly, even a broken piece of decor smashed against a glass wall in her Montecito estate. A tantrum? A meltdown? Or a desperate final gasp from a woman watching her Duchess dream collapse in real time? We'll get to all of it. The tantrum, the ignored phone calls, the showdown between the brothers, even Meghan's whispered plans for a counterattack in Hollywood. But first, let's rewind the clock just a little. Because this wasn't just about a title. This was about control. Flashback to the Queen's decree. HRH must not be used. It was January 2020, the Sandringham Summit. After days of mounting confusion and tabloid wars, Queen Elizabeth gathered her top aides and the 2 royal brothers to finalize the exit terms for Harry and Meghan. Among the many outcomes, no royal duties, no public funding, and critically, no use of the HRH styling. They could keep the titles, technically, but they couldn't wield the power that came with them. Meghan's camp at the time claimed they didn't mind. Titles don't matter to her. One source close to the Sussexes told People magazine. It's about service, not status. But now, in 2025, something had changed. Insiders began spotting subtle clues. Meghan's name attached to certain initiatives, sometimes listed as HRH the Duchess of Sussex. Confusion on guest lists at high society galas. Brand partnerships with language that danced on the edge of protocol. Nothing overt, nothing prosecutable, but enough to raise eyebrows. Especially William's. And when those eyebrows raise, things start moving fast. So here's the deeper question. Was Meghan baiting the royal family? Was this her strategic long game? To blur the lines so much that the public couldn't tell what was permitted and what was performance? It wouldn't be the first time she played the ambiguity card. Remember the Oprah interview? The infamous line, "Were you silent or were you silenced?" Meghan has built her narrative not through direct attacks, but through carefully staged rhetorical questions, implications, and elegant grievances. But William? He doesn't play ambiguity. Behind the scenes, sources say he was enraged. Quietly at first, but then something snapped. And what pushed him over the edge might have involved someone far younger than Meghan or Harry. Their daughter? Their son? No, Princess Charlotte. Because if you believe what insiders are whispering, Meghan made a subtle comment, possibly during a pitch meeting in LA. referring to future royal girls being trapped by outdated titles. A comment that, when repeated back to Kensington Palace, was interpreted by William as a thinly veiled jab at Charlotte's destiny. That's when the gloves came off. Now imagine this. William, the future king, pacing through a private corridor at Kensington Palace. Furious, focused, and done with waiting for Charles to take action. He calls in his private secretary, demands a briefing on the Sussex brand, orders a quiet review of every appearance, document, and social post where Meghan's title may have been misused. This isn't petty royal drama. It's high-stakes image warfare. Because the crown operates on one key principle, legitimacy, and Meghan, whether intentionally or not, was poking holes in it. So William drew a line, not in sand, in stone. And what followed? A letter, direct, unambiguous, brutal, sent not through aides, not through lawyers, but from one royal to another. In it, a final warning: cease all use of the HRH styling. Cease all branding tied to the Duchy of Sussex, or face complete removal from every remaining royal privilege, titles included. And for the first time in years, Meghan was speechless. But silence didn't last, because just days later came the tantrum. An emergency meeting at the Montecito mansion. PR firms on hold. Netflix execs asking questions. And Meghan, according to at least one staffer, was unhinged. She allegedly accused William of sexism, classism, even jealousy. She blamed Kate. She blamed Charles. At one point, she reportedly tried to get in touch with Queen Camilla, a call that was politely declined. But the real panic? It came when Meghan realized something chilling. There was nothing she could do to stop it. No royal vote. No public appeal. No press tour that could reverse what William had already set in motion. The man who will be king had spoken. And in the monarchy, that's the beginning of the end. So where does this all go next? What legal steps is William taking behind the scenes? What does the king know? And will Charles block or bless the move? Why did Meghan try to call Princess and for help, only to be ignored? And what role does Harry play in all of this? Is he standing beside Meghan, or secretly siding with his brother? This is not just a tabloid saga. This is the most seismic power shift within the House of Windsor since the abdication crisis. And the fallout? It's already rippling across Hollywood, London, and even Buckingham Palace itself. But what comes next will leave the world gasping. Because William's final strike is far from over. And Meghan's next move might just make everything worse. Was it an innocent oversight or a deliberate power play? That's the question that lit a fuse under Kensington Palace and triggered one of the boldest moves Prince William has made in his entire royal life. But before we get to the letter, the legal maneuvers, or the epic tantrum that shook Montecito to its core, we need to go back to the small breadcrumbs Meghan Markle had been quietly leaving behind. Clues, hints, glimmers of defiance. Because long before William struck back, Meghan may have been setting the stage for something much bigger. And it all started with 3 letters that the monarchy had forbidden her to use. HRH, the official line versus the subtle game. After the Sandringham Summit in 2020, the agreement was clear. Harry and Meghan would retain their titles as Duke and Duchess of Sussex, but they would no longer be referred to as His Royal Highness or Her Royal Highness. Not in speeches, not in branding, not in business. Full stop. The Queen herself had reportedly insisted on that clause, fearing the commercial misuse of royal styling in global markets. It wasn't personal. It was institutional. A boundary that protected the sanctity of the monarchy from what insiders dubbed celebrity creep. At first, Meghan complied. Or so it seemed. Public-facing websites were updated. Social media posts dropped the HRH styling. Interviews framed the Sussexes as former working royals. All looked clean, above board. But palace insiders now claim that's only what the public was meant to see. Behind the scenes, a very different picture was taking shape. Subtle reemergence, the HRH slips. Fast forward to mid-2025. A quiet press release goes out to promote Meghan's involvement in a global education initiative. Tucked at the bottom, under her bio, the styling reads, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. Not loud, not front and center, but undeniably there. Then, just weeks later, an invite-only philanthropy summit hosted in Beverly Hills lists its honorary chairs. One of them? HRH Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. Coincidence? The palace didn't think so. According to sources close to Kensington, one of William's aides flagged these appearances. At first, it was just an eyebrow raiser. Perhaps someone on Meghan's PR team had slipped. Maybe it was a miscommunication. But then came the third incident. A private document associated with a new trademark filing listed her title in legal terms as HRH the Duchess of Sussex in a manner that appeared, at least to the royal legal team, as a deliberate attempt to reclaim the styling. And that's when William's patience began to unravel. Royal stylistics. What's in a title? Everything. It's easy to dismiss this as semantics. 3 letters. So what? But in the monarchy, titles aren't decorative. They are constitutional weapons. The styling, HRH, signifies official royal duties. Proximity to the throne. State-sanctioned representation. Using it without authorization isn't just frowned upon. It's seen as a dangerous precedent. To the British public, it confers authority. To international institutions, it suggests diplomatic backing. To commercial partners, it means value. Meghan knew this. After all, she and Harry had spent years fighting to redefine what royal titles meant, launching the Archewell Foundation, securing multi-million-dollar deals, and framing themselves as global humanitarian figures. But without HRH, the Sussex brand looked more celebrity than crown. So when Meghan started to quietly insert the styling into behind-the-scenes documents and elite event materials, some saw it as a rebranding effort. Others saw it as defiance. Whispers from Montecito, Meghan's royal edge strategy. Multiple reports from within Meghan's inner circle suggest that, by 2025, there was growing concern that the Sussex sparkle had dimmed. The Spotify deal had imploded. The Netflix content pipeline had cooled. Tabloid scrutiny was intensifying. So what was the pivot? Reclaim the mystique. According to a well-placed Hollywood publicist, Meghan's strategy was to reframe her image, not as a celebrity, but as a global stateswoman. A duchess in exile. A woman wronged by the firm, yet still royal in stature. Meghan doesn't want to be seen as another reality brand, the publicist said. She wants to be Amal Clooney meets Princess Diana. To do that, the HRH prefix was critical. Even if she couldn't use it overtly, the branding had to suggest royal gravitas. And quietly, it started creeping back in. William's growing fury. Enough is enough. Back in London, William wasn't amused. Initially, he kept his thoughts private, letting palace aides handle communication through proper channels. Warnings were issued, requests made. But Meghan didn't back down. In fact, one report suggests her lawyers argued that the HRH styling was never formally removed, and that as Harry was still a prince by birth, she retained derivative styling under certain traditional precedents. That argument did not go over well with William. By autumn 2025, he had reportedly compiled a full internal dossier of every instance the HRH styling had re-emerged in connection to Meghan's name. And in private, he began calling it what no one else dared: title abuse. It's not a brand. It's a birthright. William's philosophy. For William, this wasn't about Meghan personally. It was about the institution. Sources close to him say he believes the monarchy must be above perception wars. That once you allow former working royals to benefit from styling without duties, the whole system collapses. It's not a brand. It's a birthright. And if you leave the family business, you leave the family name behind, he reportedly told a close advisor. But the more Meghan played coy, issuing vague statements, denying any direct involvement in branding decisions, the more William saw it as calculated. He wasn't just dealing with a rebellious sister-in-law. He was facing a soft power insurgency. And in the shadows of Buckingham Palace, he began quietly preparing a response. The legal leverage. What power does William actually have? Now here's where it gets interesting. Technically, William is not the monarch. Yet, he cannot unilaterally strip titles. That authority lies with the sovereign, currently King Charles. But William is the Prince of Wales, the direct heir, and he controls enormous influence across the royal household, including communications, strategy, and, crucially, access to key decision-makers. By late 2025, sources say William had begun leveraging that influence to build support for a drastic option: a formal petition to revoke Meghan's remaining royal styling. including the Duchess of Sussex title, on the grounds of reputational damage to the crown. Is it legal? Murky. Is it politically risky? Extremely. Is it unprecedented? Almost. But that didn't stop him. Because William, for the first time in years, was operating with full conviction. Meanwhile, in California, Meghan's quiet confidence. Across the Atlantic, Meghan wasn't panicking. Not yet. According to those close to her, she believed the monarchy wouldn't dare take such a drastic step. After all, the optics? A woman of color, a mother, a humanitarian, being stripped of royal titles by a future king? It would be a PR nightmare for the firm. So she continued building, quietly booking appearances, consulting with political contacts, whispering about a potential return to the public eye, not as a duchess in waiting, but as a global leader. Still, the HRH issue wouldn't die. Her team tried to sweep it under the rug, calling it clerical errors. But the palace wasn't buying it. And William? He was already preparing to go public. And when he didn't just fire a warning shot. He dropped a letter like a guillotine. But more on that in the next chapter. Because what Meghan didn't realize was that someone else had entered the picture. Someone whose name had been quietly dragged into Meghan's strategy. Someone who would light a match under William's rage. Her name? Princess Charlotte. What happens when the future King of England decides he's done being diplomatic? When Prince William, long viewed as the stable one, the steady one, the quiet heir, reaches a point where he's no longer willing to sit behind his father's indecision or the palace's endless attempts at keeping the peace. You get what insiders are now calling the Kensington eruption. Because what the public didn't see, what the tabloids only vaguely alluded to, was that in the fall of 2025, Prince William had a private breaking point. And it wasn't just about Meghan. It wasn't even about Harry. It was about his daughter, Princess Charlotte. The day it broke, William's private office goes into lockdown. It was a Thursday morning. Chilly. Overcast. London's fog clung to the palace walls like a warning. William arrived early to Kensington Palace. Alone. Not with Kate. Not with aides. According to someone familiar with the household schedule, he walked straight past his usual briefings and into his private study. No smile. No small talk. Just one sentence to his private secretary. Close the door. And for the next 2 hours, William didn't emerge. But behind that closed door, something was shifting. The heir to the throne wasn't reviewing speeches or planning charitable visits. He was reviewing a dossier. A thick, spiraling document compiled by royal aides over months, tracking, in detail, every instance of title styling abuse, protocol overreach, and unauthorized branding connected to Meghan Markle. Not gossip. Not social media speculation. Documented violations. And at the top of the final page, one name chilled him. Charlotte. The Charlotte reference, that crossed the line. So what was it? According to one source with knowledge of the situation, it stemmed from a Hollywood roundtable conversation Meghan allegedly had with a major producer connected to a new docuseries. In that closed-door meeting, Meghan had reportedly discussed the expectations placed on royal girls and how outdated structures still dictate their roles before they're even 10 years old. She didn't name names. She didn't have to. The reference, to those listening, was clear: Princess Charlotte. The source says Meghan described a future where she hoped certain traditions would be re-examined, suggesting even the children of monarchy deserve freedom from the system's limitations. To her audience, it sounded empowering, a feminist stance, progressive. But to William, it was a violation, a subtle, insidious swipe at his daughter's future, her role, her place. And that's when he erupted. Inside the storm, William's verbal lashing. What happened next wasn't public. It wasn't official. But according to multiple palace insiders, it was unprecedented. William summoned his private secretary, his senior communications aide, and his most trusted advisor from Clarence House. Quietly and off-calendar. The message was simple. We're not protecting her anymore. No more statements deflecting blame. No more delays waiting on Charles. No more turning the other cheek. William reportedly went ballistic. This isn't just branding, he said. This is my daughter's future. My daughter's life. And I won't allow her to be used as a soundbite to boost Meghan's next media venture. This wasn't William the diplomat. This was William the father. William the heir. William the protector of the crown. And he was livid. A call that changed everything. William reaches out to Anne. But perhaps the most surprising move? William didn't immediately call his father. He called Princess Anne. The Princess Royal, respected, feared, the no-nonsense veteran of palace politics. If anyone understood the gravity of protocol being weaponized, it was Anne. Sources say their conversation was brief, measured, but by the end of it, Anne was reportedly in full agreement with William's next steps. She offered advice, historical precedents, suggested legal pathways that would avoid dragging the entire family into the spotlight while still delivering consequences. That call changed everything, because up until that point, William had been acting solo. Angry, yes, but isolated. But with Anne in his corner, the mood shifted. This wasn't just personal anymore. This was strategic. Charles, the king who hesitates. Now here's where the plot thickens. King Charles had long walked a delicate tightrope when it came to Harry and Meghan. Publicly cordial, privately cautious. Many in the palace believed Charles feared that stripping titles would escalate things too far, triggering another PR meltdown or legal retaliation. But William? He wasn't interested in PR. He believed that not acting was worse than any fallout. That every day Meghan was allowed to skirt the rules, the monarchy's integrity eroded. Still, Charles hesitated. And that, insiders say, was the final insult. Waiting for father to act is like waiting for fog to lift, William allegedly quipped to an aide. So he took matters into his own hands. The Shadow War Cabinet. William's inner circle mobilizes. Within 48 hours of the Charlotte incident, William convened a secret meeting. Off record. No paper trail. Only 5 people in the room. 1 royal legal advisor. His private secretary. 2 trusted PR strategists. And Princess Anne on speakerphone. The goal? Draft a formal notice, independent of the king, outlining Meghan's alleged title misuse, clear boundaries moving forward, and potential consequences. A final warning. Not through press leaks. Not through headlines. But through a personal letter. From William to Meghan. No lawyers. No ambiguity. A move that could only be interpreted as one thing. Checkmate. Meanwhile in Montecito, Meghan's blissful ignorance. While William waged a silent war in London, Meghan was reportedly feeling emboldened in California. Her podcast team was prepping for a new release. Netflix had reopened conversations about a docuseries, and her stylists were seen entering her Montecito home, possibly preparing for a major shoot. In other words, she had no idea the tidal wave was building across the Atlantic. Sources say Meghan was particularly energized after being invited to an elite private fundraiser where her seating name card, allegedly, read, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. It was the 3rd incident, and for William, it was final. The letter is written. We'll dive into the contents in the next chapter, but here's what we can reveal now. William sat down, with no aides, and handwrote the first draft. Insiders say the tone was measured, but severe. No emotion. No flattery. No appeals to family bonds. Just 3 points. Immediate cessation of HRH styling in any context, public, private, domestic, or international. Formal acknowledgement that continued misuse would trigger a petition to remove the Sussex titles entirely. A statement of boundaries, that any future mention of minor royal children in public discourse, especially Princess Charlotte, would be considered defamation of character and dealt with accordingly. It was not a suggestion. It was an ultimatum. And when the envelope left Kensington Palace, William didn't wait to hear back. He simply looked at his advisor and said, She knows what this means. The calm before the storm. In the days that followed, the mood inside Kensington shifted. Staff were instructed to prepare for possible media fallout. Comms teams began quietly drafting neutral language in case of escalation. But William? He was calm, decisive. Unlike the years of dodging press drama or hiding behind palace statements, this was a new William. One who realized that silence was no longer strength, it was surrender. And in Montecito, Meghan received the letter. She opened it in her home office, reportedly while reviewing footage for her upcoming branding campaign. What happened next? Would shock her staff, shake her PR team, and send a ripple of panic through every Hollywood executive still clinging to the Sussex brand. Because in that moment, Meghan finally realized this wasn't a warning. It was a countdown. What if the moment everything collapsed for Meghan Markle wasn't a media interview or a Netflix documentary, or a leaked text message, but a single sentence whispered behind closed Hollywood doors. A sentence she thought would never reach London. A sentence she thought would stay inside a private pitch meeting. A sentence she thought would elevate her narrative, not ignite a royal firestorm that would push Prince William past his final breaking point. Yet that's exactly what happened. Because one offhand remark, one veiled criticism wrapped in polished advocacy, ended up being interpreted by Kensington Palace as an attack on Princess Charlotte herself. And that's when everything changed. This chapter is the turning point, the detonator, the spark that ignited William's royal wrath. So let's walk into that room together. The Hollywood meeting that should have been forgotten. Picture this: a sleek private boardroom in West Hollywood. Frosted glass, stone table, soft jazz humming in the background. A dozen producers, assistants, and consultants seated around Meghan Markle, eager to hear her ideas for a new social impact docuseries. This wasn't public. This wasn't recorded. This wasn't meant for gossip blogs, royal correspondents, or palace historians. This was a strategy conversation. A pitch session between Meghan and a major studio executive looking for the next glamorous activism TV moment. The setting was intimate. The tone was polished. The energy was Meghan at her most charismatic. And that's what makes what she said next so shocking. Because in an effort to make her point, some say to elevate herself as a modern feminist leader, Meghan introduced an anecdote that rippled all the way across the Atlantic. An anecdote involving royal girls trapped by tradition. The quote that exploded inside Kensington Palace. Multiple insiders claim Meghan said something along the lines of, "Even now, young royal girls are being raised for roles they didn't choose. Their futures are decided for them before they even understand the system they're born into." On its face, the comment sounds harmless, empowering, even. But to the Hollywood executives in the room, one thing was clear. She wasn't talking about herself. She wasn't talking about Diana. She wasn't talking about women in ancient monarchies. She wasn't talking about fairy tale characters in dusty books. She was talking about Princess Charlotte. It was the only interpretation that made sense. The only young, high-profile royal girl in the world whose future seemed front and center in public consciousness. The only child whose destiny, sister to a future king, daughter of a future king, could symbolize tradition. And Meghan's implication? That Charlotte was trapped, outdated, raised into an oppressive role, a victim of royal convention. The room reportedly went silent. The executives understood the subtext immediately. And when that quote quietly made its way back to London, relayed through whispers, agents, power brokers, and a deeply connected PR figure, Prince William didn't hesitate. He erupted. Why William snapped? The father before the future king. Most people misunderstand William. They think he's cautious, reserved, controlled. And he is, publicly. But privately, he is fiercely protective of his children in a way that borders on volcanic. Diana's tragedy shaped him. The paparazzi shaped him. The years shielding George, Charlotte, and Louis shaped him. He learned early that the world doesn't play fair with royal children. So when Meghan, someone William once welcomed into the family, made a comment that could be interpreted as reducing Charlotte's future to a victim narrative, William saw red. Pure, unfiltered red. He wasn't angry as a prince. He was angry as a father. To him, it was not a feminist observation. It was a targeted critique, a veiled swipe, a political play using his child's life, her destiny, her legacy, as part of Meghan's Hollywood pitch. And if there is one thing William does not tolerate, it is outsiders using his children for their narratives. Charlotte is not a talking point. Charlotte is not a symbol. Charlotte is not Meghan's emotional leverage. To William, the line wasn't crossed. It was shattered. The internal report that fueled the fire. Within hours of hearing the quote, William demanded everything. He asked for a full review of Meghan's recent public statements. He asked whether similar comments had been made before. He asked for transcripts from PR firms, consultants, producers, anyone cooperating officially or unofficially with the palace. What he received was worse than expected. According to one insider, the palace dossier suggested Meghan had repeatedly floated the idea of royal daughters being trapped in multiple private conversations. Hollywood executives believed she was referring specifically to Charlotte. Meghan allegedly used this theme to contrast herself as a liberated modern mother. These remarks were not accidental. They were part of a narrative arc she was workshopping for future content. And that's when William lost patience. This wasn't just protocol abuse. This wasn't just HRH branding. This wasn't just media manipulation. This was Charlotte. The private outburst Kensington will never acknowledge publicly. One palace staffer, speaking under strict anonymity, recounted William's reaction. He slammed the file shut so hard the table shook. Another claimed, "I've never seen him like that. Not even during the height of the Harry drama." What did William reportedly say? "Charlotte is not her storyline. She doesn't get to use my daughter. She went too far. And then, I'm finished waiting for father to do something. I'm handling this myself." That sentence changed everything. William had always deferred major decisions about Harry and Meghan to Charles. That era ended the moment Charlotte's name entered the conversation. From that moment on, William viewed Meghan not as a rebellious duchess, but as a threat to the dignity and privacy of his child. The callback to Diana that made this even more personal. Here's what makes this even deeper emotionally. William has spent his entire adult life reimagining the monarchy to protect his children from the same suffering his mother endured. Every choice he makes as a father is driven by one fear: that history could repeat itself. And when he heard Meghan's comment, he heard echoes of the media machine that once swallowed Diana. He heard the same tone, the suggestion that royal women lack autonomy, the implication that the system crushes them, the framing of royal daughters as trapped. It hit a nerve so raw that even Charles reportedly backed away, sensing William had crossed into a territory where emotion and duty collided. This wasn't palace politics anymore. This was trauma. And Meghan's remark, whether intentional or not, triggered it. The Kate factor. Why this cut even deeper? It's impossible to understand William's reaction without understanding Kate. To him, Kate represents everything Meghan publicly rejects about the monarchy: duty without complaint, grace without theatrics, service without self-promotion, stability without scandal, respect for tradition without losing personal identity. Kate chose the royal role. Charlotte may do the same one day. So when Meghan framed royal girls as victims, William couldn't help but interpret it as a double attack. On Charlotte and on Kate, he saw it as undermining his wife's role, trivializing her sacrifices, reducing their daughter's future to a feminist talking point Meghan could weaponize. To William, that wasn't commentary. It was disrespect, and it marked a point of no return. The private summons, William calls his inner circle. Within hours of learning about the Charlotte comment, William held a closed-door meeting at Kensington Palace. Only 5 people were present. No one else was allowed in the room. And for the first time since Harry and Meghan left royal life, William's tone shifted from frustrated to decisive. According to someone close to the situation, William wasn't seeking advice. He was giving orders. He told his team, "This ends now. She will not use HRH again. I will issue the warning myself. And if she pushes back, we strip everything." That's when the wheels began turning. He didn't ask Charles. He didn't wait for Charles. He didn't even notify him at first. This was William acting as the future king. And as a father. The first draft of the letter. We'll go into the full contents next chapter, but here's what we know. William pulled out a notepad, sat at his desk, and wrote a draft of the letter by hand. No emails. No aides typing. No digital trail. Just ink. Paper. Resolve. The first line allegedly read, "This is not a request." The final line, "Do not speak of my daughter again." That line, if true, is the most explosive thing William has ever put in writing. Because that line reveals the depth of his fury, the protective instinct, and the absolute end of any illusion that reconciliation was still possible. How Meghan responded, and why it backfired. When Meghan eventually read the letter, and we'll break that down later, she reportedly erupted, shouting, denial, accusations, blaming palace sexism, blaming William's fragility. But what truly enraged her was the implication that she had targeted Charlotte. Meghan allegedly told her team, "I didn't even say her name." But here's the thing. William didn't care. Because in his mind, if Charlotte was the intent, it was unacceptable. If Charlotte was the implication, it was unforgivable. If Charlotte was the example, it was an attack. No matter Meghan's intent, The outcome was the same. She had stepped into forbidden territory, and now she would pay the price. The aftershock. William goes into protective mode. After the Charlotte incident, William made several immediate moves. Ordered higher protection protocols for Charlotte. Directed staff to monitor all media for references to royal children. Instructed his legal team to evaluate defamation options. Began preparing the petition to strip titles. Drafted the final warning letter. And, most shockingly, mobilized Princess Anne for support. Anne's involvement meant only one thing. This was war. Because Anne doesn't get involved unless the crown itself is threatened. And in this case, she believed it was. The chapter's final question. So here's the real question. Did Meghan understand the magnitude of what she said? Or did she underestimate the one force in the monarchy she should never have crossed? William the father. Because from this moment on, the feud was no longer about titles, or protocol, or media narratives. It was about Charlotte. And William would burn down anything that threatened his daughter's future. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What does it look like when a royal heir quietly prepares for war? Not a war of armies, not a war of sabers, but something just as brutal, a reputational war. A war of symbols, of laws, of legacy. That's exactly what unfolded behind the locked doors of Kensington Palace in the days following Meghan Markle's perceived attack on Princess Charlotte. Because while the public saw nothing and the headlines stayed calm, something seismic was shifting beneath the surface. Prince William was done playing defense. The gloves were off. And in total secrecy, he launched a strategy so bold, so unprecedented, so terminal, that even senior courtiers were stunned by its scale. He called it Operation Final Strike. And the first step? Silence. Absolute silence. The fog of calm, the strategic quiet before the storm. In the week following Meghan's now infamous quote about royal girls, nothing appeared to change. The press didn't report a thing. The palace gave no public statement. William and Kate made quiet public appearances, smiling, waving, and attending charity galas like nothing had happened. But it was all a performance. Because behind closed doors, Kensington Palace had been converted into a war room. The moment Meghan's alleged attack on Charlotte hit William's desk, he began assembling his inner circle, not for a crisis response, but for a surgical offensive strike. And the goal was chillingly clear. Strip Meghan of every remaining connection to the royal institution. HRH usage? Gone. Duchess of Sussex title? On the chopping block. Security clearances, diplomatic honors, ceremonial invitations? Erased. Historical page listings, website archives, official UK documentation? Rewritten. William wasn't just trying to protect Charlotte. He was trying to erase Meghan's royal shadow from the monarchy, permanently. Step 1. The inner circle gets tighter. William's first move wasn't public. It was personal. He narrowed his advisory circle to 5 people, none of whom worked for Charles directly. His private secretary, a legal strategist previously involved in the Sandringham Summit, a senior royal historian, an institutional PR operative with Crown copyright experience, and by phone, Princess Anne. Anne's involvement elevated the seriousness immediately. Because Anne isn't ceremonial. She's strategic. And when she signs on to something, it means one thing. The monarchy is threatened. Step 2. The legal framework to strip titles. Most people assume royal titles are untouchable, either gifted for life or embedded in bloodlines. But that's not exactly true. Yes, hereditary titles are difficult to revoke. But courtesy titles, stylings, and post-marriage honorifics? They fall under sovereign discretion. And even more importantly, under certain clauses, they can be challenged for misuse. That's what William focused on. He knew Charles might not approve of full title revocation outright. So instead, he and his legal advisors explored a more creative path, revoking style recognition from all government-adjacent bodies. Here's what that means in practice. Meghan would still technically be the Duchess of Sussex, but no UK government agency, Commonwealth institution, or royal charity would be allowed to refer to her using that title. She would vanish from official communications. The Crown would stop acknowledging the styling in any form. And HRH usage, even unofficial, would trigger immediate legal threats. In effect, Meghan would become a duchess without a duchy, a royal with no recognition. Step 3. The communication strategy. William's media strategy was genius. Rather than leak to the usual royal correspondence, which would risk chaos and misinterpretation, he tightened the narrative. Only 2 journalists were to be briefed. Quietly. Off the record. Both had proven themselves trustworthy during the Queen's funeral coverage. Both had royal ties going back to the Diana era. Both knew when not to speak. The goal? Seeding the fallout. Not announcing it. Letting it land like a whisper and grow into a storm. The messaging would be subtle. William is said to be concerned about recent misuses of styling. There are growing calls from inside Kensington for a formal statement on titles. One insider says, the Prince of Wales has drawn the line. The effect? Pressure would build organically, without William ever having to go public. By the time the official move was made, the public would already be primed. It would feel inevitable. Step 4. The Royal Reset Campaign. While legal and press strategies were being drawn up, William's team launched another component, the institutional cleanup. This may sound minor, but it was devastatingly effective. Within 2 weeks, the following occurred. Meghan's official bio was scrubbed from multiple royal websites. Her title was removed from certain Commonwealth recognition boards. Archival photos were recaptioned to reflect non-working royal status. Invitations to ceremonial events were quietly discontinued, and Meghan's name was excluded from a major upcoming royal jubilee list. But the most symbolic move? The College of Arms, custodians of royal heraldry, received a formal request to review and freeze all usage of Meghan's coat of arms. This was huge. A royal coat of arms is a living symbol of one's connection to the monarchy. Freezing it meant no new publications could display it. No charities could use it. No foreign embassies could cite it. It was the royal equivalent of locking a vault. Step 5. The final letter. Everything had been prepared. The legal channels? Ready. The comms rollout? Timed. The institutional erasure? Already underway. Now it was time for the final blow, the personal letter. William insisted on writing it himself. No ghostwriters. No palace spin. Just him. The tone was reportedly ice-cold. Not cruel. Not inflammatory. But terminal. 3 key directives. Meghan was to immediately cease using the HRH styling in any capacity, direct or indirect. Any public reference to Princess Charlotte or other minor royals would result in legal escalation. Continued violation of these terms would trigger a full petition. Not to Charles, but to the Privy Council, to strip all royal honors associated with the Sussex name. It ended with a chilling line. The monarchy does not forget, nor does it tolerate. Meghan receives the letter, chaos in California. Meghan read the letter in her Montecito home office. It arrived by private courier. No email, no fanfare, just a sealed envelope bearing the personal crest of the Prince of Wales. According to one assistant, Meghan read the first line, dropped the letter, and went silent for almost a full minute. Then came the storm. PR firms were called into emergency meetings. A Netflix Zoom session was abruptly canceled. A branding crisis memo was circulated within Archwell. At one point, Meghan reportedly screamed, "He doesn't get to do this to me. Not him. Not after everything." But that wasn't all. Because William had anticipated her reaction, he knew she might fight back. Threaten interviews. Write a memoir sequel. And so he activated the final phase of Operation Final Strike. Step 6. The paper trail trap. William's team had been collecting evidence. Emails. Contracts. Speaking bios. Brand kits. Anywhere Meghan's team had reintroduced HRH or leaned on her title to secure influence. The idea? If Meghan pushed back publicly, William would leak the receipts. Quietly. Legally. Not through tabloids, but through official filings and documentation dumps. He would paint a picture not of a woman being punished, but of an institution defending itself from exploitation. In this framing, William becomes the hero, the protector, the future king preserving dignity and order. Meghan? A cautionary tale, a former duchess who couldn't let go. The silent vote of no confidence from the monarchy. Perhaps the most dramatic thing about Operation Final Strike? Charles didn't stop it. He knew. He was told. And he said nothing. Sources say Charles reviewed William's strategy, nodded, and turned away. Was it cowardice? A quiet endorsement? Or an admission that William had gone where Charles couldn't? Either way, The message was clear. William wasn't the spare anymore. He was acting like the king in waiting, and no one dared to stop him. The chapter's final question. So now, the chessboard is set. William has made his move. Meghan has received the warning. The royal institutions are aligned. The public narrative is shifting, but the question remains. Will Meghan fight back? Or does she now realize? The palace doesn't just remove titles. It erases legacies. And what happens next might be the most dramatic twist of all. Because if Meghan decides to go nuclear, William is already holding the detonator. What does it look like when a duchess breaks? Not in public, not in a courtroom, not even on Netflix, but behind gilded gates. In a mansion built for fairy tales, shattered by fury, confusion, and a dawning realization that the crown she once tried to escape had finally escaped her. This is not Meghan Markle, the polished podcast host. Not Meghan, the poised duchess or smiling brand ambassador. This is Meghan in meltdown mode. And it all begins the moment she opened that letter. Because while the ink on Prince William's warning was dry, the consequences were only just beginning to sink in. And when they did, Meghan didn't just panic. She exploded. The letter arrives, and so does the storm. It was a cool morning in Montecito. The sun had barely risen over the Santa Ynez Mountains when a black SUV rolled up the driveway of Meghan and Harry's sprawling estate. No logos, no palace stamp, just a sealed, hand-delivered envelope. The kind of envelope that doesn't get passed through assistants or PR staff. It was for her hands only. Meghan was reportedly in her home office, reviewing production notes for an upcoming project. When the courier arrived, she took the envelope, felt its weight, recognized the unmistakable royal seal of the Prince of Wales. According to a staffer, her face changed immediately. First, curiosity, then confusion, then something sharper, a flicker of dread. And then she opened it. A single page, 3 paragraphs, no signature flourish, just William's clean, sharp handwriting. No warmth, no dear Meghan, no niceties. The first words reportedly read, "This communication serves as final notice." And by the time she reached the final line, she dropped the letter. Not metaphorically, literally. It hit the floor. And then, so did her composure. The shouting match. He doesn't get to do this to me. Within minutes, the Montecito mansion erupted into chaos. Staff were summoned. Assistants scrambled. Phones rang like alarms. But Meghan? She wasn't delegating damage control. She was screaming. Allegedly pacing furiously across the marble floor of her office. One staffer later described her as inconsolable and explosive. The following quotes were reportedly shouted, nearly word for word. "He doesn't get to do this to me. I built my name around that title. They're nothing without me. Nothing. He's jealous. He always has been. Jealous of Harry. Jealous of me. You want war, William? Fine." Then came the accusations. They want to erase me. They want to punish me because I'm not white. They can't stand that I left and became more powerful. Every fear, every suspicion, every grievance Meghan had held in for years came flooding out. Unfiltered, unedited, raw. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't optics. This was rage. The symbolic shattering. A moment of pure theatrics. As staffers tried to calm her down, something theatrical, almost cinematic, happened. On a table near Meghan's desk sat a crystal bowl. A gift from a celebrity friend, said to be infused with peace and healing energy. Sage bundles rested inside it. A diffuser sat beside it. One assistant claimed it had been a focal point of her daily mindfulness ritual. And in that moment, Meghan picked it up, held it in both hands, and hurled it, full force, against a glass partition wall. The bowl shattered. So did the glass. Peace and healing obliterated in an instant. It was the kind of symbolic outburst that no PR team could spin. No documentary could reshape. No inspirational podcast could overwrite. This was Meghan unfiltered, a woman who had just been told her last royal anchor was about to be cut. The gate drama. Security called, guests cleared. By midday, the Montecito estate was buzzing with tension. Multiple sources claimed a private garden brunch had been planned for the next day, an intimate meeting with local media allies and a few friendly faces from Hollywood circles. It was quietly canceled, not postponed. Canceled. Security personnel were instructed to clear the property. Anyone not essential to household operations was told to leave. Delivery services were halted. PR staff instructed to operate remotely. Even Harry's own office assistant was told to stay out of the West Wing. Why? Because Meghan had entered what insiders now call her lockdown phase. And during that phase, no one knew what she might do next. The PR freeze, damage control mode activated. The Archwell Communications team, already stretched thin after the Spotify fallout and Netflix delays, was thrust into full-scale crisis mode. Emails went out at lightning speed. Hold all upcoming statements. Pause all talent bookings. Do not comment to press under any circumstances. All inquiries must be routed to legal. One team member reportedly drafted an emergency talking points document titled, Reframing Royal Retaliation, the Duchess as Global Advocate Under Fire. But Meghan refused to release it. Not yet. She wanted options. She wanted retaliation. The phone calls that never got returned. In the hours that followed, Meghan picked up the phone and dialed. Not Netflix. Not her agent. Not her friends. She tried to call the royals. First, Princess Anne. Ignored. Then, Camilla. No response. Then, according to one source close to the situation, she even attempted to reach King Charles. Aides took a message, but he never called back. And the one that stung the most? She tried to call William. Not to scream. Not to beg. But, reportedly, to demand an explanation. The line didn't even ring. Straight to voicemail. And that voicemail wasn't full. It had been blocked. The gatecrasher moment, Meghan's most revealing slip. Here's where things get bizarre. Sometime late that afternoon, after hours of spiraling, Meghan was overheard, through a half-open patio door, venting to a staff member. She wasn't aware anyone else could hear. And what she said chilled the assistant who later related. They've locked me out. It's like I'm not even allowed to knock anymore. I'm not a duchess. I'm a gatecrasher. A gatecrasher. The word echoed like thunder in that house. Because whether she realized it or not, Meghan had just admitted the one truth she'd refused to acknowledge for years. She was no longer welcome. Not in Windsor. Not in the palace. Not even at the royal gates. And deep down, she knew it. Harry's reaction. Absent, aloof, or just gone. While Meghan raged, another mystery was brewing. Where was Harry? According to palace insiders, he had been in touch with William in the days leading up to the letter. Not frequently, not warmly, but enough to know it was coming. So where was he when Meghan imploded? One source claims he was out of town. Another says he was in the guest house, avoiding the conflict. A more dramatic report suggests he was in therapy. Told to remove himself from the toxic trigger environment temporarily. But whatever the truth, he wasn't there. Not when the letter arrived. Not when the bowl shattered. Not when Meghan screamed that she had been erased. And that silence, that absence, felt, to Meghan, like betrayal. The chapter's final revelation. So now, we have a woman alone. Her royal protection? Gone. Her HRH title? Hanging by a thread. Her public support? Eroding. Her allies? Silent. Her husband? Distant. And the one person who could have stopped this? William. But instead, he was the one who pulled the trigger. And Meghan? For the first time in years, she had no playbook. No exit strategy. Just rage. And an aching, gnawing question. What am I without that title? She had always branded herself as Duchess, Advocate, Trailblazer. But now, she stood at the gates, uninvited. And what she did next would stun even her inner circle. Because the very next day, she sat down and began writing a letter of her own. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What happens when a royal reaches out, and no one picks up? Not because they didn't hear the phone, not because they were busy, but because they chose not to. Because sometimes silence isn't a mistake. It's a message. And for Meghan Markle, that message came crashing down the morning after her Montecito meltdown. When, desperate for some kind of leverage, some form of control, some last sliver of royal validation, she picked up the phone. She called the one person she believed would understand. The one royal she thought might still take her side. But what she heard on the other end? Nothing. Not a beep. Not a ring. Not even a cold, clipped voice. Just absence. Because the line had been severed, emotionally and strategically. And for Meghan, that silence would be more devastating than any tabloid headline or viral scandal ever could be. The night before, a house in darkness. After Meghan's furious tantrum and symbolic destruction of her crystal sage bowl, the Montecito estate fell into an eerie quiet. Not peace, not calm, something else, something colder. Staff moved carefully, quietly. Doors closed softly. Voices were kept to whispers. Even Harry, if he was home at all, stayed in a separate wing. According to one insider, the night ended with Meghan alone in her home office, scrolling through her phone like a woman trying to find oxygen. Contacts, text chains, missed calls, screenshots, emails, read, receipts that never came. But no response, no reassurance, and most damning of all, no control. That morning, she had shattered glass. That evening, she sat shattered. And what did she do next? She made a list. The target list. Who might still pick up? It was a list of 5 names. Each scribbled hastily on a legal pad with a pink pen, circled, then underlined. Princess Anne, Queen Camilla, King Charles III, Lady Sarah Chatto, Prince Edward's private office. Each represented a different play, and the blunt realist who always loathed drama but respected rules. Camilla, the woman who had once been an outsider herself, perhaps sympathetic? Charles, the only one with true authority, if he still cared to intervene. Sarah, the quiet royal, Diana's niece, sometimes a bridge between factions. Edward's office, the procedural arm, maybe still willing to delay or advise. It was the last net Meghan could cast over the firm. If someone, anyone, picked up, she could spin, negotiate, maybe even delay the fallout from William's final strike. She poured a glass of water and started dialing. The first call, and no assistant, no PR firm, just Meghan's voice, calling Princess and directly. No voicemail, no ring. Just a cold, automated voice. This number is no longer available. Not blocked, not busy, disconnected. It was deliberate and devastating, because if and had turned off the line, and the royal bulldozer who once sat Meghan down and told her, "This isn't Hollywood, it's duty," then it meant something severe, and had stepped off the battlefield. And when it steps away, she doesn't come back. The second call, Camilla. Meghan hesitated. Calling Camilla was a risk. After all, their relationship had always been strained. Not outright hostile, but laced with distrust. Still, Meghan clung to the idea that Camilla might understand what it's like to be the outsider, the hated woman, the inconvenient presence. She tapped her finger nervously. Called. Ring ring. Nothing. Then voicemail. But not Camilla's voice. Not the gentle, breezy, aristocratic cadence Meghan expected. Instead, a filtered assistant line. You've reached the private line for Her Majesty the Queen. Please direct royal matters to Clarence House. It was bureaucratic. It was intentional. And it was a wall. Another door closed. The third call, Charles. This was the big one. The longest shot and the highest stakes. Charles had once extended Meghan a real olive branch. He walked her down the aisle. He tried to smooth things with Harry. He believed, many say, that he could hold the family together, even as it splintered. Surely he'd at least listen, right? Meghan hit call. 1 ring. 2 rings. Then a pickup. But it wasn't Charles. It was a staff member. Male. Stern. Her Majesty's line is unavailable. Would you like to leave a message? Meghan, stunned, said nothing. The voice asked again. Colder this time. She hung up. She didn't leave a message. Because she now understood. She'd been put on protocol. The same kind of procedural distance used for reporters. Outsiders. Former royals. Not family. The fourth call, Lady Sarah Chatto. Sarah was the wild card. Princess Margaret's daughter. A quiet presence. An artist. Known for staying out of drama, but still respected within the royal inner circle. Diana loved her. William still sends her personal Christmas cards. Maybe, just maybe, Sarah would offer a lifeline. Meghan called. It rang. And to her surprise, it was answered. But not by Sarah. By her husband, Daniel. The exchange, according to a source briefed afterward, went like this. Daniel. Hello. Meghan. Hi, it's Meghan Markle. Is Lady Sarah available? Daniel. Pause. I'm afraid she can't speak at the moment. Meghan. Can I leave a message? Daniel. You can email the office. Goodbye. Click. No warmth. No suggestion of a return call. Just cold civility. It was worse than anger. It was dismissal. The fifth call, the last hope. Prince Edward's private office had always been professional. They handled logistics, honor rolls, jubilee planning, ceremonial events. The machine behind the monarchy. Surely someone in that office would pick up. Meghan tried. The call connected. A polite male voice answered. Office of the Earl of Wessex. Meghan cleared her throat. This is the Duchess of Sussex. I need to speak with someone about. But before she could finish, the voice cut in. I'm sorry. This office no longer handles matters related to the Duke or Duchess of Sussex. Please refer all communications through Buckingham Protocol. Is there anything else? Meghan went quiet. No, she whispered, and hung up. The aftermath. Meghan stares at her phone. 5 names. 5 attempts. 5 closed doors. The message was now undeniable. She was out. Entirely. No backchannel. No friendly aunt figure. No sympathetic queen-in-waiting. No overlooked royal who might speak up. The firm had gone silent. Deliberately. Systematically. Chillingly. And that silence wasn't passive. It was strategy. Because when an institution like the British monarchy wants you gone, they don't shout it. They simply stop acknowledging your existence. And to Meghan, a woman who built her empire on recognition, applause, and narrative, that silence was suffocating. Harry's silence, the dagger twisted. In her despair, Meghan did one last thing. She called Harry. He didn't answer. No text. No call back. No knock at her door. She was alone, and she knew it. Because Harry, insiders say, was still reeling from his own call with William the week before, a call that changed everything. A call Meghan still didn't know the full details of. A call where William allegedly told Harry, either stand down or stand aside. And Harry, tired, conflicted, and emotionally drained, had gone silent too, which left Meghan with only one option left. The pen, the paper, and the beginning of her counterstrike. The chapter's final twist. As the sun rose over Montecito the next morning, Meghan did what she hadn't done in over a year. She wrote a letter by hand, folded it carefully, placed it in an envelope, marked it private, and addressed it to Prince William. What was inside? A plea? A threat? A declaration of war? Even her staff didn't know.